This is a time to uprise. Welcome to today's show. What I'm about to show you from Donald Trump is exactly what I've been warning about for well over a year in regards to not just smart cities, but luring and herding people based on their political affiliation into certain areas. So in other words, dividing the country between blue states and red states. And the more and more we start seeing stories like this coming out of, Donald Trump's own mouth, as well as, the things we see with Gavin Newsom in California and some of these other states being run through the ground, it's becoming more and more obvious that this is the direction that we're headed in. And this is extremely important that you don't get sucked into this. Now, the problem is going to be that people like me and most of you who don't believe in politics, who don't consider ourselves Republican, but obviously would lean towards the right because the liberal side of things is just pure perversion and insanity, and the things that they support are just absolute chaos. But the problem is that we're going to be forced into these red areas because states that are blue states are going to have mandates in place. They're going to have 15-minute cities in place. But don't think for 1 second that doesn't mean the red states won't either, because Donald Trump has come out and talked about creating, you guessed it, freedom cities. Oh boy. And I'll get into it in more detail in a minute. I want to let everybody know I have on the website, atimetouprise.com. You go to atimetouprise.com, you click on the image, and it takes you to another page. On that page, there's a tab for free videos. If you're somebody who hasn't joined the website and you don't have any interest in joining the website, it's understandable, even though I think everyone should give it a try. I think you'd really enjoy it. But if you can't for whatever reason, if you click on the free videos tab, you could put your email in there. That way you can find my work whenever. You'll be emailed every time there's a new upload on YouTube. You'll be emailed every time there's a new video on the website. And you'll be emailed whenever a channel is terminated. That way you can find me on YouTube and we don't have to continue to go through this. So if you click free video, just put your email in. That's all you have to do. And you'll get notifications, because a lot of you do complain that you never get the notifications on YouTube about new videos that I put up. I see it all the time. People are like, how come I didn't get an update on this one? How come no one told me about that? I didn't see that video. Well, this way you'll be able to, and you could watch all the videos, or you could pick and choose videos that interest you that you want to watch. That way you'll at least be notified, which is your right to be notified since you sign up and subscribe to YouTube to watch the videos. So please make sure you do that now if you haven't. And again, you could also join the website if you're interested. It's $2.99 a month, troll free, keeps the trolls out. Otherwise, if there was no paywall, I would be spending all day just deleting fake accounts that sit there and troll like most of these losers do. So anyway, back to Trump. Here is Donald Trump talking about proposing building 10 freedom cities with flying cars. But the thing to note isn't the flying car aspect, it's the freedom cities, because these will be red cities. And part of the reason you see these cities being destroyed on purpose now is, of course, to lure Republicans into these locations.
Past generations of Americans pursued big dreams and daring projects that once seemed absolutely impossible. They pushed across an unsettled continent and built new cities in the wild frontier. They transformed American life with the interstate highway system. Magnificent it was. And they launched a vast network of satellites into orbit all around the earth. But today, our country has lost its boldness. Under my leadership, we will get it back in a very big way. If you look at just 3 years ago, what we were doing was unthinkable. How good it was, how great it was for our country. Our objective will be a quantum leap in the American standard of living. That's what will happen. Here are just a few of the ways we can do it. Almost 1/3 of the landmass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream. Another big opportunity is in transportation. Dozens of major companies in the United States and China are racing to develop vertical takeoff and landing vehicles for families and individuals. Just as the United States led the automotive revolution in the last century, I want to ensure that America, not China, leads this revolution in air mobility. These breakthroughs can transform commerce, bring a giant infusion of wealth into rural America, and connect families and our country in new ways. Likewise, through our Strategic National Manufacturing Initiative, which is going to be very big and very, very successful, we will turn forgotten communities into hives of industry, producing the goods we will no longer import from China. We will also have a major initiative on lowering the cost of living with a special focus on lowering the cost of a new car and lowering the cost to build a single-family home. And they will be beautiful homes. And I will ask Congress to support baby bonuses for young parents to help launch a new baby boom. Finally, I'll challenge the governors of all 50 states to join me in a great modernization and beautification campaign, getting rid of ugly buildings, refurbishing our parks and our public spaces, making cities and towns more livable, ensuring a pristine environment, and building towering monuments to our true American heroes. Very importantly, I will also make sure all of these new places are safe. We love and cherish our police. They will do the job the way they have to. It is time to start talking about greatness for our country again. I will dramatically increase living standards and build a future that brings our country together through excitement, opportunity, and success. Thank you very much.
So this is frightening because this is exactly what I talked about, dividing people into locations. Now, why is this frightening? Because a lot of people would look at this and they go, well, it sounds great. I don't have to live amongst liberals. We don't have to worry about them doing the trans library stuff in school. This is exactly what we need. There'll be more. It's all going to be organized according to plan. This isn't something that's organically happening. Trump is not organically doing this. Just like all this stuff is being done on purpose to keep us divided from one another, but also to put us in positions of being sitting ducks. Because I feel like these red states are going to be no different. You're going to see stuff like exactly what's occurring in Ohio happen in these red states. Oh, conveniently, trains filled with chemical bombs have derailed and the water's now contaminated and the cities are now contaminated. You're going to see things like HARP being turned on. You're going to see exactly what happened in Turkey going on in these cities. That's why they want to lure people, because they want to target the people who are against this new world order. So that's my belief. And I think it's pretty easy to see that that's coming to fruition. Okay? It's pretty easy to see how they're starting to do this and herd people, because we hear all the stories about all the Republicans fleeing to Florida, right? Florida gets drilled with hurricanes, among other things. And then we see all of these, states like California where it's unlivable. And the only people that stay there are liberals because they will cling on because they worship government above anything else. So they don't care how miserable their way of life is. They convince themselves that everything is fine. So Trump proposed building up to 10 futuristic freedom cities on federal land, part of a plan that the 2024 presidential contender said would create a new American future in a country that has lost its boldness. And again, a lot of people are going to fall into this deception, because if you look around, all you have to do is put on the news, really, right? You could see what a living hell they're making America look like. Now, all of these things that we see, a lot of them are obviously operations created by the CIA. We see, people just carjacking, shootings at gas stations. These are types of things they're constantly putting on the news. And then, of course, from the other perspective, they put all of these events that they also create and try to pretend like, oh, it's conservative people who are owners of guns, right? So obviously in the blue states, there'll be no guns. It'll be completely the way they envision the New World Order. And the other states will be almost like the way things used to be in a sense, but they're going to be sitting duck states. They're going to be states that they're going to start just creating these false flags in the red states, amongst other things. So they say commuters, meanwhile, could get around in flying cars, an echo of the Jetsons, the classic cartoon about a family in high-tech future society. Work to develop vertical takeoff and landing vehicles is already underway by major airlines, auto manufacturers, and other companies, though widely seen as years away from reaching the market. And of course, the flying car thing would only be able to, even if they, I don't even know if they can do it, but even if they could, would only be able to happen in red states because the blue states will essentially be green states. Everybody will be driving electric. Everything will be green in those states. They say, Trump says, I want to ensure that America, not China, leads the revolution in air mobility. Trump, who announced his third bid for the presidency in November, said in a 4-minute video detailing his plan, he said he would launch a contest to charter up to 10 freedom cities, roughly the size of Washington, D.C., on undeveloped federal land. We'll actually build new cities in our country again, Trump said in a video. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream. So these cities will be facades, okay? And let's not forget that Trump is still out there peddling the fact that he rolled out the vaccine, which, of course, was according to plan, because they were able, before he left office, they were able to lure in the Republicans to go and get it. Because remember, initially, the liberals were like, I would never take that, ever. Trump made it? No way. And then when they switched and Biden was in and they made the mandates, the liberals were all on board. I mean, it's just a pure psyop. And like I always say, it's a seesaw of back and forth. They just sway your emotions each way, up and down, up and down. And part of that purpose is for things like this, because people are going to be so fed up, people with morals, they aren't going to want to live in a blue state. I wouldn't want to live in a blue state, but at the same time, I'm not going to fall into the honeypot. I have no idea what I'll do or any of us will do when this stuff comes to fruition, but they're going to keep us divided. And it's going to become two separate countries with separate rules. The blue states will have their own rules. There'll be mandates in place. There'll be 15-minute cities. There'll be carbon footprint, all the things that they have planned for all of us. They know that half the population is not going to go along with this stuff. So Trump is going to create these freedom cities, which are going to be honeypots for Republicans, conservatives, Christians to go to. Especially Christians will be lured in there, whether they're into politics or not, because they're going to go, hey, in these cities, we talk about God. In these cities, we don't have, library drag hour and all that stuff. And people are obviously going to go, okay, this is where I would rather raise my kids than in this chaos of a blue state. They'll be lured into these locations. And then they'll continue to work their psyops on everyone over and over again, along with being able to hit these cities with chemical bombs and all these other things that they'll say are derailments and accidents and the boogeyman and the climate. And they'll go on and on and on and on. And that's how this whole thing is going to work. So Trump's pitch came a couple of days ago before he spoke at the CPAC in the Washington, D.C. area. And as the 2024 Republican president field begins to take shape, the proposal is the latest in a series of early policy offerings from Trump, who in recent weeks has also said he would seek to ramp up domestic energy production, adopt a more isolationist foreign policy stance, and purge the government and military of warmongers and globalists. I mean, these are all things that obviously appeal to all of us, right? But that's the problem here. Trump was at the World Economic Forum. Trump was meeting with these people. Trump is a globalist, really. He just plays a nationalist on TV, and he's so good on the mic. I mean, I'll give him that as an actor. He's a good speaker. You hear him, and you're like, oh man, he's funny. He ribs on these people all the time. But it's all part of the show. I mean, this guy's been friends with the elites forever, with the Clintons and all these people. The only way they can work people into this stuff is by having like the Illuminati card game says, a charismatic leader that can seduce people into this, that can, get people. They made things so crazy and insane that you want to support Trump. But the problem with all this is that it's all being done by design, and people don't understand how psychological operations work. So they're luring people. It's a trap. And if you can't see that by now, I mean, where are all the things like back in 2016 when people like me were saying, oh, it's, Trump's one of them, don't fall for this stuff. I was getting drilled on here. People were like, oh, you're ridiculous and you don't know what you're talking about. And, they created Q, obviously, right after Pizzagate, after people like me exposed it and spent days, hours, weeks, nights exposing this stuff. And then they just created a psyop around it. And now, everybody got lumped into the Q movement with Trump. But Trump was supposed to drain the swamp. We never saw a draining of the swamp. In fact, all we saw was Trump create more division in America and then roll out the potions that everybody went and took. And then he still is defending it, saying it's like one of the greatest achievements. Still. And people don't see through that. That's the ultimate big agenda. They can't have him speaking against that, even though the majority of conservatives just overlook it. They're like, oh, It's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal, alternating people's codes, okay? So anyway, this is what I see with this. I mean, I see a massive trap, and I've been talking about this for a while, and I know people are like, oh, that's a little over the top, and people have said that. They're like, I don't know about that, how they're going to do that. Well, just continue to see how they work this. They're going to force people, without physically forcing you to leave a state that you're in that's completely liberal, you're going to end up going, I have to go. Because now they're forcing the potion on me. Now they're forcing this on me. Now they're forcing that on me. Now they're doing this in the schools. Now they're making me get rid of my gas stove, right? All things that are going to push people to leave certain states based on those preferences. The liberals who worship government will be fine with it. They'll be like, oh, I'm so glad we're going to be in a state that has no guns. No guns are allowed. We're going to be safe. And they won't create psyops in those states. All the media will do is talk about utopia and how wonderful these states are. Right? Even though the suicide rate will be through the roof, as it is for most liberals, because they don't understand what's happening. And then, of course, they'll create psyop after psyop in the red states, and there'll be gun incidents and all that stuff, and they'll keep those people herded into their, imprisonment cities, because they'll be like, oh man, I'm so glad I'm not in. It could be worse. I'm so glad I'm not there. All these, conservatives running around with guns, forcing Christianity on everyone. I mean, this is exactly what we're headed toward. And I know people are like, well, we're not going to be here in a few years. But I've been hearing that for a long time. People are like, we're not going to be here in a few years. It's going to be over in a few years. Well, this is what their plan is. If you want to believe we're not going to be here, that's fine. I mean, do I want to be here for this? No, I don't. But I'm not preparing myself to not be here. I'm trying to prepare people out there to be prepared and to think 10 steps ahead of how they're planning here. Because you could see how they're luring people. Remember, I always say this on my channels. When you hear these stories, step back and ask yourself how it's making you feel, because that's what they want. So if you get caught in the story and you see this without being, in a conscious state saying, what are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to, and you see it and you're like, oh, wow, well, that sounds good. You'll start hearing them market this as, oh, these futuristic cities that, there won't be any of this trans, there won't be any of this. It'll be like the way America used to be, just better, right? You'll start saying, oh, yeah, wow, I wish things would go back to the way they... You have to pull yourself out when you hear these stories. How are they making you feel? Where are they trying to lure you? Because that's what they want. That's what they did with Florida, which I still believe is a deadly honey trap. I just uploaded a video on my other channel, one of my old main ones that Ted Pike did, on hate laws and hate crimes. If you haven't seen that, I'd highly recommend you check it out. Talking about the ADL, right? Well, DeSantis is in bed with the ADL in Florida. So, Christians might be heading down there in flocks and droves because of the anti-wokeism. But once the ADL stuff, the stuff with the ADL is like free speech gone. Hate speech is, you go to jail for saying things that are hurtful to certain groups and organizations. So it's got honey trap written all over it. But anyway, I wanted to cover this with Trump, the futuristic cities. Can't make it up, but it's actually happening. These types of things are part of their plan, and it's unfolding right before us, but we have to be prepared mentally. And you might say, well, what can we do about it? Well, just be prepared. Understand how they're trying to work you, okay? Because they're all in bed together. If Trump wasn't one of them, he'd be long gone. He never would have even gotten in the position. They completely control all, everything to do with voting is not real. All the people in these positions are all plants. They're all just working the division in this country. That's all you see when they show like the House floor and the Senate floor and these guys arguing back and forth. It's like, it's never been like this before. It's like watching the WWF. I mean, it's literally, they're at down each other's throats, and they try to pin you into these, I can't stand the AOC, and I can't stand these liberal people and their politics. And the other side looks the same way at the conservative groups, like the Warren Boberts or whoever. They're all actors. And all they're doing is steering you in the directions they want you to go in. So be forewarned. I thank everyone for being here. Again, a reminder, in the link below, in the description box below and pinned in the comment section, a time to uprise.com. You go there, you click, you'll see a thing that says free videos on the right. You subscribe to the free videos and you'll get all updates and notifications from me, every time I upload. And of course, so you can find me when my channels get taken down and not have to worry, because so many people lose. That's how they end up destroying my work, is by removing the channels, and then hundreds of videos each time. Every 6 months, I usually have hundreds of videos up by then, because I do 2 to 3 a day. They take all those down. And then, of course, when somebody tries to search for me, they can't find me because I have to come up with new names. So just do it. If you could do me that favor, I'd appreciate it. I thank everyone for being here. God bless all of you and your families.